What's going on? Today we're going to be interviewing Cruz, the founder of Stagera. If you landed on this video, it's likely because you have a couple of questions wondering what this is all about. And so today I'm just going to be asking a few questions so you can kind of understand better what Stagera is and if it can maybe help you in your business. So starting off, Cruz, welcome. For someone who doesn't know what Stagera is, could you explain it briefly so we can kind of understand?
Yeah, absolutely. So Stagera is an all-in-one software platform. We serve AVL production companies. Essentially, if I had to put it into maybe one sentence, we do financial management, warehouse management, and crew management. And within those three pillars, we automate a lot of the workflows that these companies use day to day. Yeah, so a little background on me. I've been working in the AVL industry for most of my working life. I've worked as an LD at a couple venues for a couple production companies. I started as a stagehand, one of the Live Nation venues here in town, just doing all kinds of stuff, some rigging, some sound, some lighting. I also have my own small production company where I DJ. I set up all the events, do all the sound and lighting.
How long have you been doing that for?
I've been doing that since high school. It's it's been a huge part of my life, just being able to bring music to people. But
nice.
That's kind of what got me into the AVL industry. But what actually inspired me to create Stagera is working for a lot of these companies. I saw so many issues. But one thing that really stuck out is all these companies that I worked for, they all had very similar issues. They were all complaining about the same things. A lot of that being relating to crew management, right? So being able to clearly and effectively communicate to your crew members the details for an event. Also just having so many different software tools, that are all spread out. None of them were able to really communicate with each other. And so that caused a lot of frustration where, a lot of these companies, they were doing a lot of, copying and pasting between programs, kind of manually bridging the gap. And it resulted in a lot of wasted time. And, I thought that there's got to be something out there that solves this problem. And so I started looking and I couldn't find anything. And so that's
what they say.
Yeah, you know what they say. If you want something done right, you got to do it yourself. So that's exactly what I did. Here we are a couple years later, and now we have Stagera, which solves a lot of the problems that I was dealing with when I was working in the industry.
And with these companies you mentioned, how's the experience been with them working with Stagera?
Yeah, I mean, obviously I can't speak on behalf of all the companies that are using Stagera, but we do talk very often with our clients and work really closely with them, collecting their feedback. And actually, a lot of the features that we have on Stagera were recommended by the whole feedback system that we have implemented with our clients.
Right.
And so they'll come to me and tell me listen, we want the workflow to work this way, or we want this certain feature.
Yeah, it's really built off of...
It's really built off the actual needs of production companies, which I think a lot of other softwares out there are not necessarily keeping the end user in mind as much as they should.
Yeah.
So that's definitely, if I had to speak for them, I would say that a lot of companies are enjoying the close relationship we have and the excellent customer service. And
to piggyback off of those other companies you're mentioning, how do you think Stagera compares to some of the other ones out there, like Rentman? There's Flex, Good Shuffle, all those.
Absolutely. Yeah, all those softwares the ones you mentioned are mostly warehouse management, inventory management.
Right.
Some of them they're starting to branch out into crew management, but they do a good job at what they're built for. But they're not all built the same. They take a very specific part of the operation, and the tool is really built around that, like warehouse management. But where we kind of differ with Stagera is our goal is to bring all the software tools into one platform. So, I mean, even if you have Rentman or Good Shuffle or Flex, a lot of companies that have those, they also have to supplement with.
They're still using Sheets and
They
other
still have to
calendars
supplement with
other things.
with SMS messages, Google Calendar, maybe a Cruz scheduling app, and they're kind of left on their own to fill in the gaps.
So what you're saying is like someone could use Rentman and Stagera at the same time, or they could also
just use Stagera.
Absolutely. So if there's something that Rentman really does, or another company that does something that you really like, and the way they do it really well, but they're lacking in a few other ways, then you can supplement Stagera into
100%
fixing a lot of the bottlenecks.
We have so many features. I mean, pretty much every feature request we've gotten from a client, we've implemented to some extent. Obviously, we think it through pretty thoroughly before implementing them, so we don't just implement any feature requests. But
I have another question.
Yeah.
What kind of ROI can people expect, time and money wise, using Stagera?
Using Stagera? Yeah. So, I mean, obviously, it's going to be different for each company, but some of the biggest time savings you're going to see is on the crew scheduling side of things, where our system keeps track of everybody's availability through their personal calendars, and the AI monitors, all that stuff. And so not manually having to reach out to all your crew members, mentally collect availability in your head and then, come up with a schedule. That's just one example of our AI assistant, Sparky, can automate that process. And you can do that in one click. And we have probably 10 other features like that, within warehouse management. You can go from the quote to, you can go from client communication via email all the way to a fully scheduled event in probably about 10 minutes.
And how long does that normally take?
I mean,
if you're doing it with like Sheets or the old
it really depends on the company, but some companies have told me, per event they're spending anywhere from 8 to 10 hours on building out the quote, making the gear reservations, collecting all the crew availability, scheduling the crew, communicating the schedule to the crew. So yeah, that's one of the big areas we can save time. And then also, we have a lot of features like with our inventory catalog where you can embed it on your website, right? And essentially give people very easy access to your gear catalog, which a lot of companies have reported they're doing a lot more dry rentals when they're not doing shows, which is increasing their revenue quite a bit. And then also, having a really good, clear picture on what your margin is going to be when you're actually quoting somebody for an event.
You're talking about the calculator?
Yeah, so our margin calculator is huge. I mean, you can visualize exactly what your profit margin is going to be. It's broken down by revenue, labor costs, transportation costs, and you can make adjustments with a slider on the fly. And so basically, what your profit margin is when you're building out the quote, and you can adjust it before you ever, on the fly, basically.
Rather than waiting till after the show and realizing that
exactly
you didn't make as much money as you thought you were.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Let's say this. If I'm watching this video now and I'm kind of on the fence, I'm a production company that's kind of on the fence about Stagera or switching, what would you say to me directly?
Give us a shot, do a demo call, and just see for yourself, what we have to offer. I think our product really speaks for itself. And when you actually see how the features work and how the workflows, interlink,
right,
it'll click in your head pretty fast why we're the superior option.
Right.
And we don't really try to hard sell anybody on anything. We just want to make it easy and let you make your own decision. We know it's a big decision making this switch because you run your entire operation is run on these software tools. And so it's a big decision. So I think that, a 45-minute demo call is definitely a valuable use of 45 minutes. because if you do make the switch, and it ends up saving you tens of thousands of dollars and gives you 10 hours a week back in your life. I mean, that's a huge ROI that a lot of other things you're not going to be able to find that ROI.
Okay, cool. What do you think the most valuable takeaway is from someone watching this video right now?
For someone watching this video,
I kind of want to wrap it up, keep it somewhat short.
Yeah, absolutely. Most valuable takeaway is that we really thought this out. We come from the industry, we understand the problems, we understand the workflows, and Stagera is really built off of the direct feedback and recommendations of other AVL production companies. Mm-hmm. And so, just keep that in mind. If you have a problem, if you have a suggestion, you can call me directly, and you have a direct line of communication, and we actually listen.
So. A lot of the times, if it's not an insane feature, sometimes things get fixed or implemented same day.
Yeah,
that's
very
common.
That happens all the time.
Right on. So, well, it was a pleasure, Cruz. I'll wrap it up there.
Yep, thank you.
What's going on, guys? Today I'm going to be interviewing Cruz, the founder of Stagera. This is basically where I'm just going to kind of go through a bunch of random questions that I made here to try and help whoever may be watching this learn more about Stagera and kind of get to know us a little better and see if what we have might be a good fit for your production company. So starting off, Cruz, first of all, great to have you.
Yeah.
For someone who doesn't know what Stagera is, could you explain to me exactly?
Stagera, yeah, absolutely. So Stagera is an all-in-one software platform that serves AVL production companies. We have three pillars, right? So we have crew management, financial management, and warehouse management.
Okay.
And within those three pillars, we automate a lot of those workflows. So you can run your entire operation on Stagera, from warehouse to crew to finance, and you can save a lot of time doing it.
Right on. What actually inspired you to start this in the first place?
What inspired me to start Stagera? So I've been working in the AVL industry for most of my working life. I've worked as an LD. I've worked as a stagehand. I run my own small production company. I DJ. I own all my own gear. So
whole nine.
Whole nine. But in working all those different positions and working with lots of other production companies,
you almost built it for yourself at first.
Yeah. So
in a way.
So I've worked for a lot of companies, and I've noticed that a lot of them have very similar problems.
Mm-hmm, of course.
A lot of them complain about the same things. A lot of it revolves around communication. And just feeling like what they're doing is super repetitive, as far as you have all these different software tools, something for quoting, something for warehouse management, something for crew scheduling, something for accounting, something for whatever else you're doing, and none of those tools really communicate with each other, and there's a lot of manual data entry that you have to take the info out of this software and then put it into this software, copy and paste. You got to monitor your email and constantly store all this information in your head.
Right.
And for a lot of the owners, I've gotten pretty close with some of the owners of these companies. For a lot of them, they're just constantly on edge because they're basically working 24/7. They have to communicate all these details and show all this show information to their employees. And there's always little fires popping up. So basically, their phone's ringing 24/7. They hardly get any time off.
Is Stagera
Yeah,
for?
that's a great question. So, initially we built it out working with AVL production companies, working directly with them on what features they need and exactly what problems they were looking to solve.
And still are every day.
And still are.
That's
but we've also implemented like a DJ module. So there's some similarities with DJs. They still have gear they have to keep track of. They have events that they need to keep track of. So yeah, we serve DJs, we serve AVL production companies, dry rental companies. So businesses that just rent out gear. I have some clients that do installations and integration. Think of like a nightclub. Someone is installing all those lights, all that sound.
Yeah.
Even sales too. We have a couple companies that have used us to track their inventory catalog, and then basically that we have features where they can publish their catalog online and manage their sales that way. So it's pretty broad, but for the most part, it's all focused on the AVL production industry.
I see. And out of those companies you mentioned, DJs, mostly AVL production companies, what do you think their biggest problems they have are that Stagera is actually solving?
I mean, there's a lot of them. I hear new ones every day, but some of the ones that I hear the most often revolve around...
most often, and then give me the biggest ones.
Most often and biggest ones. Okay. Probably the biggest one is just overall profitability on events. It can be really difficult to accurately plan for labor costs. Like when you're building out a quote, because things pop up sometimes, you forget a cable or an adapter or something at the warehouse, or, it could be something bigger, but then, you got to send a guy in a truck to drive 3 hours back to the warehouse to grab it, or you got to go like, Best Buy or something and go buy, go buy the cable. So it's just little things like that pop up that really could be avoided if there was a better planning system in place. We call it our margin planner. And so when you're building out a quote for a job, you can see the breakdown of your labor cost, your transportation cost, the revenue from your rentals, and you can adjust your profit margin with a slider. It'll automatically increase prices on certain things.
Okay. Well, nice.
And there's tons of other granular controls that you can use to increase your profit margin. But really, the main thing is being able to do that before you send off the quote, right?
Right.
So what you're going to be making versus what you're actually going to be spending.
Because you don't want to be changing that number.
Yeah, you don't want to wait until after the event and then have to, just the whole process of making those fine tunes. If you can just speed that process up.
From the beginning.
Yeah, from the beginning, that's huge.
Right.
And then to kind of go back, you said you also wanted to hear the ones I hear the most often. The ones I hear the most often are probably just have to do with like forgetting things. Organization, like on pick lists, like for example, maybe you have someone that works in the office, right? They don't actually work out in the field. And they're the ones making the pick list or the pack list. Depends on what company you work for. They call it different things.
Right.
But, sometimes there can be a disconnect where, they don't know that this adapter or this cable needs to go with this piece of gear. And so it doesn't get put on the list. And then, maybe you have a new hire who doesn't know either.
Right.
And so then you get to the event and
forgot to tell
them, and then you got to run back and grab it. Or, also...
Stagera basically makes it so that you can't forget those things. You basically...
You set up required accessories. You literally cannot forget those items. So you could give this, to a child, and they would be able to...
build your pick list.
Build an accurate pick list that anybody can understand.
That's nice, yeah.
And then another thing another problem that I hear super often is I think in some other industries they call it the key person. I'm sure you're
Key man?
The key man.
Key man risk?
Key man risk. So at least the companies that I work for, and a lot of other companies, when I do these demos, they tell me some of the problems they have. It's like the owner or the manager, they're the ones doing all the client communication, right? It's a lot of phone calls and emails. And so having all this information flowing to one person and then having it flow out to your team. Mm-hmm. A lot of times what happens is that key person will forget to communicate, even if it's a small little thing, like
details matter.
Yeah, the time when load-in times or what's the power
location,
situation?
Load-in location.
Yeah, I've been dispatched to a
parking lot
load-in, and it was like the wrong date.
Right.
Stuff like that happens.
It's silly.
It's silly. And so what Stagera does to fix that is, rather than all the information flowing through one person and then out to your team, right? It just flows into Stagera, and then everybody can see it.
Everyone knows already.
Yeah, and the automations basically dispatch it to who needs to see it, tells them exactly what they need to do, and a lot of those little details don't get missed.
What do you think the experience has been like for some of the production companies that you're currently working with, for them using Stagera?
Yeah, so we kind of started out when we were first building it. We did a beta, so we worked very closely with these companies that were in our beta, actually collecting their feedback on what workflows they want, how they want the UI to look, how certain things interact with each other. And so I think, we've carried that sort of, way we treat our clients.
Personal connection almost.
Personal connection.
Right.
We've carried that forward into our launch, where we still maintain that really close connection with our clients.
And even for your developers too, like they're also close.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Close with your clients as well.
Yeah, my developers are constantly talking with clients.
Yeah.
And so, I think they're very happy with the results they're getting, first of all. And second of all, the almost immediate response when they have a problem or a question or they have a feature request, having that resolved.
If it's not you texting them back, it's one of your developers.
Yeah, and it's usually same day we get things taken care of.
Right.
And that's something that as we grow, we're going to try and maintain that. So I think a lot of the clients that we're working with right now are pretty happy. And anyone watching this video, if you'd like to reach out to one of these companies and actually speak to them and hear the truth from them.
I'm sure they'd love to share their thoughts.
I'm sure that they would be more than happy to spread the word. So,
do you think you can give me like a real world example of a company before and after switching to Stagera?
Yeah.
Using something else, a bunch of disconnected tools like spreadsheets, calendar, maybe even another software, to then switching to Stagera?
Absolutely. I'm not going to say the name, but I'm thinking of a particular company right now. And when I first got in touch with him, I asked him, what kind of system do you have in place right now to manage, your crew and your warehouse and your scheduling? And he said, I'm just using like a whiteboard and pen and paper. And,
Whiteboard.
Some Excel.
Not even any other software.
Excel for invoicing. And after talking a little bit, he realized that that's really not scalable and it's consuming a lot of his time that is he could reclaim very easily. So this particular person, before using Stagera, he was constantly working. He was, basically working all the time, didn't have any time off. I can't even imagine how stressed he was, with all these details clouding his brain all the time. But after using Stagera, he's actually adapted really well. He's an older guy. He's fully embraced it, and he is definitely, I don't know the exact numbers, but he's definitely scaled his operations. I know he's hired a couple more employees. He's taken on more shows every month. He's able to get some time off finally, which
That's
I'm
great.
super happy we were able to make that happen for him.
That's awesome.
You know, especially getting older, it's like, you know, hard physical labor, and that's doing that all the time is just brutal. So,
of course.
Yeah, and also, you know, the money aspect. He's making more money.
Profits better.
Saving time. So yeah, it's been huge.
More organized. Cool. How does Stagera compare to like some other softwares out there? Like, I don't know, let's say Good Shuffle, Rentman, Flex. I know there's a lot, but
yeah,
how would you compare Stagera to some of those other ones
yeah, no, that's a good question.
that are available?
A lot of those ones are warehouse and like inventory management. I know some of them are like Rentman is kind of, they're building out like a crew module. But a lot of those tools are, I feel like with Good Shuffle and Flex specifically, they're kind of aimed at like just rental companies in general, right? I know Rentman's a little more focused on the AVL industry, but point is, you know, they're built for certain use cases, right? And a lot of companies end up kind of finding them and applying them to their use case, even though it might not be like exactly what they want.
Right.
And then they're still left to kind of fill in the gaps. Like they have warehouse management, but now they still have to figure out their crew scheduling tool and their you know, accounting software. And
so even after getting specific softwares, they're all still kind of disconnected.
Yeah, and then the other thing is with a lot of those, they're built in. They were built, you know, some of them built 20 years ago. I know like Rentman and Flex and current RMS, those were built a long time ago. And in the age of AI, you know, you can have anything you want, right?
Right.
And so I think that Stagera is really a much needed update. You know, it's a lot of things that were not possible, you know, even 5 or 10 years ago, you know, as far as having these AI features that can really, you know, automate things and personalize the experience.
And catch things that some people might miss.
Yeah, exactly. So a lot of those things were not possible and still aren't integrated with some of our competitors. And that's one thing that makes us different is we're on the cutting edge of this whole AI revolution, and we're fully embracing it. And so, you know, pretty much, you know, any area in our software that we can automate, you know, reliably, we will do.
Right.
And I think, you know, looking at some of the other softwares, it's going to be really hard for them to catch up. And, you know, they're almost going to have to rebuild a lot of their stuff.
Because they already have so much infrastructure
from the ground up.
All the companies they're working with.
It's going to be really difficult for them to adapt.
Right. Whereas when you get a fairly new company coming into the space that can build it from scratch and have all these things.
Yeah. And then another thing too, to add on to that is, you know, since we're a smaller team, there's about 5 of us that run Stagera.
Yeah.
We don't have any bureaucracy, right? We don't have really anybody to report to or make decisions for us. So we're able to you know, move really quickly, roll with the punches, and
you get a client that needs an implementation on something. It's like, okay, we can get that done.
Yeah, we don't have to go through 5 levels of managers to get an idea through, you know. So
speed, 100%. So with those other softwares out there, what would it actually look like if someone was using one of those and they wanted to switch to Stagera? What does that process look like?
Yeah, I know that's a big worry for a lot of people is making the switch.
Because obviously they already have a massive systems already set up with what they're doing, and
absolutely
they don't want anything to break.
Data and inventory data and client data, all that stuff is, you know, already in these systems. So we try to make it really easy, right? We actually offer a full onboarding service, white glove onboarding, where we will personally, you know, with your permission, log into your accounts, export all your data, and personally make sure it all gets implemented into Stagera for you. So literally, you know, we text you that the onboarding is done, and you log in, and your account's ready to go.
There's all your gear, all your crew.
All your gear, all your crew, your vendors, your you know, your clients, all that stuff.
Yeah, no, that's super important. What kind of ROI can someone expect, time and money wise, from using Stagera?
Absolutely.
Versus not?
Well, I mean, it's going to differ obviously depending on how big your company is and
Of course.
how you're doing things. But
Some of the common things that you
Yeah.
can easily see a time
yeah.
ROI
So
on.
some of the common things are going to be related to, again, I kind of touched on this earlier. Really knowing your margins and the numbers on your event.
Yeah.
Labor-wise, knowing all of your costs versus your revenue, which in Stagera, it's really easy to track all that stuff. So money-wise, that's huge.
That's a big one.
Time-wise, like I said, we have so many automations. I'm not going to have time to, explain every single one of them in this video. But one example is, scheduling your crew members. That process used to be, it used to take a while. You used to have to, know everybody's schedule. If you didn't, you had to reach out to them, say, hey, when are you available to work? Right? You have to wait for everyone to get back to you, and then, manually in Google Calendar or whatever you're using, create the event, and then, schedule all your people like that. But with Sparky, right, with our AI assistant, you can have our AI look at everybody's availability, their personal calendars, and also their role type. Like, what do they do? Are they an audio engineer? Are they a rigger? It can keep track of all these little variables, and with one click, you can hit, schedule this event for me, schedule the crew for this event, and it's going to give you, based on your gear that you have in your gear reservations, it's going to say, okay, you need a audio engineer, a rigger, 2 stagehands, a lighting guy, right? And then it's also going to look at, okay, out of all those different people, who's actually available for this event. And so it'll recommend you a team configuration. You can schedule them with one click, and you know that everybody's going to be available, and it tells you exactly how much it's
What
going to
happens
cost
if there's
you.
someone that you need that's not available?
I mean, you can obviously still do everything manually. It's still very efficient to do it manually.
So if you need to sub someone in for...
Yeah, I mean, I have some clients that don't even use that AI feature.
Yeah,
it's
okay,
still
so-
super easy to just quickly, throw people on an event for,
Use AI, build out the template,
Yep.
double check it, be like, oh yeah, cool, or make a little change.
Yeah, schedule them for you. I mean, you can even schedule them for like warehouse cleanup, all the way to office work to load in, show call, load out, unpacking.
So there's full
Yeah.
timesheets and...
Yep, people can clock in and out on Stagera. You can
Nice.
track all that stuff.
Okay, yeah. That seems like pretty good ROI
100%.
on time. What's the one feature that users love the most that people overlook at first when they're first getting started on Stagera or even later on?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think one, I mean, I have a couple that I really like. The two that come to mind immediately for me are some of our integrations. We're huge on integrations.
Yep.
And
If someone's already doing something really, really well, we want to partner with those guys and
exactly, rather than trying
bring
to
it all together.
reinvent the wheel.
Cohesive.
Like, I think our integration with QuickBooks is phenomenal. Basically, when you're doing all your quoting and invoicing, it automatically syncs to QuickBooks, pushes all your invoices, all the line items, all that stuff gets pushed to QuickBooks, so you don't have to manually,
Put that stuff
update
in
all
there.
of your accounting. And then also, we actually just announced an integration with Truck Packer.
Yeah, that was just like recently.
That's a feature I think that a lot of people are overlooking. Basically, when you have a pick list, right, for an event, you can just export it into Truck Packer, and it takes all of your cases, right, that are in your pick list, and it organizes the truck pack in the most efficient way.
That's sick.
And then you
What
can,
is, so what is Truck Packer?
yeah, so it's basically a CAD software that helps you.
CAD, for those who don't know what CAD is.
Yeah, so think of it like a 3D.
Like a 3D rendering of a truck.
Exactly, 3D
Okay.
rendering of a truck,
Yeah.
and then you have your case dimensions, and then it automatically configures the load plan to optimize the space you have.
The most efficient configuration.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
that's
so that's super easy.
That's huge.
With Stagera, and you can literally just export, and then you can save a document that you can send to your crew members that are loading the truck, and they can just take a quick glance at it, and say, okay, we got to load these subs in first, and then we got to load in, these stage decks, put it all here and there. Because playing Tetris, it's fun for a while, but when it's 3 a.m. and you want to go home and go to sleep, it's like, I do not want to be playing Tetris.
Not at all.
Right now.
So those are, I mean, 2 integrations, QuickBooks and TruckPacker. What's another one that's just like a built-in to Stagera?
One I think that gets overlooked quite a bit is just our calendar system, where your employees can put in their availability, and their preferred work hours, right? A lot of employees aren't really utilizing that, I feel like. At least that's what I've noticed.
So basically getting the owners or the managers
Yeah.
to try and get their employees to start using that feature.
Exactly, yeah.
Save them more time.
Yep. And then also another really cool feature I think that's overlooked quite a bit is the required accessories of feature.
We touched on that one,
feature,
yeah.
Where you can essentially, let's say you have, some Bill Jack staging, right? The stage decks. And every time you build a quote, you want the stage legs to also automatically get added to that quote.
Right. You're not going to show up with just the decks.
Yeah. With the required accessories, when you're setting up your inventory, you say for every 1 stage deck, add 4 stage legs.
Mm-hmm.
So anytime you build a pick list or you do a quote or gear reservations, whenever you add a stage deck, it's going to add 4 stage legs.
And that same feature is going to be available with, like, obviously adapters and cables and
Anything, yeah.
amps.
I mean, moving headlights, you could put your clamps as an accessory.
Yeah.
And your Edison or your PowerCon or whatever, your DMX cables.
Right.
There's also, another thing I think that people overlook is packages and containers. So building out packages. So if you have, like a case or something with like 50 different cables in it,
Okay.
you can just add those all into a container.
Right.
And then for a package, let's say you have like a pre-hung rig, you have 10 color strikes or maybe it's audio. I don't know. Maybe you have some D&B audio, like a line array. You can basically build that out as a package, include those containers, and with one click you can add the package, and it'll basically add all the stuff you have in the package plus what's in the containers. So
Okay.
like all the cables too. And so once you get that set up, it's just one click.
That brings me to another thing I'm curious about. Let's say there's a production company or even a DJ that kind of has a setup that they use very frequently. Mm-hmm. Could they build like a preset configuration inside of Stagera where that's like, okay, I need to do this event every Saturday. Then they can
100%.
just boom, and then their pick list is always ready to go.
I mean, there's a couple ways we can help with that. First of all is like event templates. So you can save a job or event as a template, and then basically copy it, right? So if you're doing the exact same event, you can do it that way. Just copy it, and then boom, you have another event. You change a couple details, or you can create an event series. So whether it's a tour or just like a monthly series, basically you can group all these different events or jobs into almost like a folder, and then you can click on it and then see all the individual different shows, and those can all have their own quotes and dates and schedules. They can all be set.
That's very useful. How are you and the team actually preparing for the AI revolution? Like, what are you doing with Stagera to kind of
That's a great question. Yeah,
adapt,
so,
I guess.
I mean, it's really hard to keep up with everything. It seems like
New stuff every day.
Every single day, there's new tools coming out. There's new competitors coming out. But I would say one thing that we're really trying to do is first off, we take a look at all the tools that are out there, and then find the best ones, right? The ones we think are going to be most likely to serve us well in the long run. Mm-hmm. And we use them, and we use the hell out of them.
Right.
Right? We use them to their max potential. Another thing we're using AI for a lot is to, test our security, right? Test our security, identify, bugs before they actually go out to the public.
That's huge.
We're able to ship updates really quickly,
Yeah.
Using AI. And that's more so on the developer side.
Right.
On the consumer side, or the actual user side, they can expect to see a lot more, AI native features where the AI is going to be doing a lot of the repetitive, boring, repetitive copy and paste, typing sort of work. And it's going to be more so like just giving you the information, you're just checking it to make sure it all looks good. Yeah, exactly. So
just making tweaks and edits, not starting from scratch.
100%. So we're constantly in the loop. We're always looking at what's coming out and how we can use it. And we're here for it. So
where do you see Stagera in 3 to 5 years?
3 to 5 years. Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, obviously, I see us growing, quite a bit in the U.S., but also abroad, internationally.
Oh wow! Okay.
Taking on international markets.
Productions are everywhere.
100%. There's live music everywhere in the world. What I'd really like to see in the next 3 to 5 years is sort of building a community around Stagera, where people are, they really love the product, and they love to recommend it to their colleagues and the other companies they work with. And then another thing is sort of this Stagera ecosystem where, let's say all the production companies in your town are on Stagera.
Yeah.
If you need a piece of gear that you don't have in your inventory, it could just boom. It can look at
someone else's inventory.
Look at someone else's inventory and see.
Sure.
Oh, yeah, they have it in stock. Let's just add that onto our, send them a note, or have them send you a quote. But having that sort of ecosystem,
that'd be cool.
And also in the next 3 to 5 years, obviously, a lot more integrations coming.
That was the first thing that came to my mind.
Yeah.
Because I know the amount of integrations you're already doing with all these other people.
100%.
That's going to grow.
Yeah.
No matter what.
Yeah. I mean, if someone else has something cool, right, or something useful
that they're doing, like,
rather than just try to copy them or reinvent the wheel, we're just gonna reach out to them and say, hey, we want to partner with you.
Yeah.
And make this accessible to our users. So I think in the next 3 to 5 years we're going to see a lot more integrations. We're going to see an Stagera ecosystem where other production companies can share resources that are using Stagera. And also I'd love to see just widespread adoption of Stagera, because I genuinely think that this is a product that's going to save people time and money, help them get more time off, allow them to pay their employees more, pay themselves more. I think it's something that has a real impact on people. So
I want to actually this just came into my mind when we were talking about integrations.
Okay.
Is the LiDAR feature something inside of Stagera, or is that someone else's?
So for you guys watching, might not have heard about this yet, but our buddies over at Truck Packer are actually working on a.
So that was with Truck Packer.
It was with Truck Packer.
Okay.
Yeah. So they're actually working on a app where you can measure cases using LiDAR on your phone, using your phone camera and the LiDAR sensor. Basically, imagine, rather than having to bust out a tape measure when you're putting all your inventory in.
Yeah.
And measuring it and then writing it down and then or whatever.
And typing it in.
You just grab your phone and you take 2 pictures. You take pictures of the corners and then drag, and boom, it takes a snapshot of the size of the case, and then that automatically gets pushed to your Stagera account.
And then that's just gonna be in Truck Packer, or is it like going to be local inside of Stagera?
That's not sure yet. It's probably going to be a Truck Packer thing, but it'll definitely be available on Stagera.
Okay.
But that's
and for those who don't know, why is the LiDAR sensor on your phone better than just taking a photo of it? Like what does it actually do?
Yeah, so I mean, LiDAR sensor is basically, think of it like radar, but it uses laser signals.
Okay.
And so it shoots little laser beams at things, and it takes a measurement of the time that it takes to send and come back. And so it's able to get really accurate measurements.
How close is it to, say, like a tape measure?
Oh, I mean, it's probably within a couple millimeters.
Wow, okay. So for packing a truck, that would be...
Yeah, 100%.
That'd be exactly what you need.
Yep, 100%. Nice. And also, I could see it being used out in the field too, just like you know, maybe you're
That has so many implications.
it has a lot of a lot of implications. You know, even for like, you know, moving, you know, props or furniture or something that are kind of weirdly shaped, you know, aren't necessarily square. The LiDAR, you can kind of add points to it and map it out.
That's cool.
In 3D, and then see how that fits in your truck.
Nice. Okay, just a couple more here. If I was watching this and I have my own production company, but I'm kind of on the fence about switching to Stagera. Like I watched this whole video, and I'm like, I'm still like, I don't really know. What would you say to me directly?
I would say, give us a shot. You know, book a demo with us. We're not going to try and hard sell you on anything. I think that our product really speaks for itself. And once you see how it works, and how it can directly solve your problems, it's going to click for you really fast.
Kind of speaks for itself.
It speaks for itself. And
so what you're saying is like no risk, just try a demo.
Yeah, no risk.
Check it out.
I mean, it's 45 minutes.
Yeah.
And you know, if you do decide to go with us, you know, that 45 minutes is going to be, you know, well spent, because you're gonna get more time off. You're gonna get
right.
You're gonna make more money.
Who doesn't love
Your
that?
crew is not going to be frustrated all the time because they don't know what job they're doing.
How many times would you, when you were working at these other productions that you said you were putting on it, how many times would you actually would these problems come up where you'd be frustrated that they had a crappy software?
Every week, every single week. I mean, for me, like personally, I know it wasn't as hard on me, but for a lot of the new people, you know, that are getting hired at these companies that don't really know all the
they don't fully understand
how everything works.
Yeah,
you know, just throwing them in and like kind of telling them to figure it out, like it makes it really difficult.
Mm-hmm.
And not only is it difficult for them and they get burned out, you know, a lot of errors are made and a lot of things slip through the gaps.
Yeah,
and that affects the whole team, not only emotionally and physically, but you know, financially too. You know, if you're paying your crew overtime for stupid little mistakes all the time, you know, that's you know, it's less money the company's making.
of course.
Yeah. So
Okay, last question.
Last question.
What do you think the most valuable takeaway from someone watching this video is? If they have their own, if they're not just watching this for fun and actually have their own production company.
Yeah. I would say the most valuable takeaway is I would encourage people to take a step back, think about how your crew is feeling, right, when busy season comes, and try and start kind of pinpointing where your bottlenecks are and your problems, and then look at what solutions are available, right, and then, you know, consider us, because I think that you know, we hit a lot of pain points and problems that a lot of other companies haven't got to yet, again, because we work directly with these production companies and building out the software. So yeah, I would just encourage people to kind of think a little more deeply about how they could improve their operation.
Love it. Yeah. All right, Cruz, it was a pleasure.
Thank you, man.
All right.
Good talking.